application that she had received through Volunteer Match. Susan asked me if I knew who Michelle Troconis was, and I told her that yes, I did know of her. I had been watching many of the news broadcasts on the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos, so I was familiar with who Michelle was, or so I thought. Susan was concerned about having Michelle volunteer because of any possible negative impact it might have to the rescue, both with our volunteers and our fundraising efforts. At that time, we were in the planning stages of many of the programs that are offered at the rescue today. And as we talk,
I want to go back a little bit. Another impromptu live, by the way. Here we are. Mover Nation. Oy vey, I'm trying to do an intro. And oh, of course. Of course. Here we are.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in Richland. Dr. John Boyle is accused of killing his wife, Noreen.
The 12-year-old son finally took the stand.
The boy confidently told the jury it was his decision to testify against his father.
I heard a scream. I heard a thud. It was about this
We,
loud.
the jury, find the defendant guilty.
I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, albeit with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. All right, guys, Mover Nation. So Michelle Troconis' sentencing is happening. I've backed it up a little bit. I started it halfway in. This first person to read on her, obviously the people coming as character witnesses and asking for your leniency on her behalf. So I wanted to catch you guys up with that. So we're going to play this, rewind a little bit. They just got back to court. We're a few minutes behind, but that's okay. Because I thought, hey, we'll share that.
Rosen to speak, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Nancy Rosen. I've been a practicing social worker since 1971, and I'm the founder of a therapeutic riding center. I first met Michelle in 1990 when she came to my summer program from Venezuela. And I wasn't drawn to her right away. She was too beautiful for my taste. And she was kind of aloof, and we just, I don't know. And then after a while, you know, a couple of days, seeing her in action, just seeing this incredibly thoughtful, kind heart, deep young woman who just paid attention to every living being on the farm, horses, the pig, the parrot, the other kids, anyone who had a problem. She was there for them. Her family had a plan for her to go to a boarding school, and when camp was over, for a year. And she was not thrilled with that option, and we offered her the possibility of staying with us for the school year. And the family and Michelle accepted. She was, you know, I have a son who's Michelle's age and a son a couple of years older, and they were all very close. They were all really good kids. They were all helpful at the farm. I have one thing, a facet of Michelle's character that I actually think has to do with this case some, and that is that her deep, heartfelt kindness and belief that all people are good. And to the extent that one time she was going down to New York City to visit or to catch up with a cousin who was going to be in town from Venezuela. And when she came back, she was telling me about this really, really nice taxi driver who at the end of the conversation, when he dropped her off, he invited her to come visit his apartment the next time she was in the city. And she's telling me this with great enthusiasm, and I'm saying, Michelle, you know, a nice conversation doesn't mean a good person. You know, you really have to, you know, be a little bit more suspicious. She isn't and wasn't. I tried to explain that, you don't visit people you don't know at their homes, that you may be a public space, At the end of that year with us, Michelle went home to finish high school and college in Caracas, Venezuela. In the 30 years since, she's finished college and completed a certification in therapeutic riding and taught in various places and countries. I love Michelle deeply and admire her. I am truly horrified and saddened that she's part of this terrible story. I feel great empathy for all the victims that the sociopath Fotis left behind. His parents, his wife's parents, the 5 children now without mother or father, Jennifer's friends, Michelle's daughter, and her sisters and parents, and Michelle herself. I hope, sir, that you can believe that Michelle can do much more in her life to make amends in society than being incarcerated the rest of her days. She is a beautiful human being that I love with all my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ask that Eileen Keller speak, please. Eileen Keller.
For everyone that doesn't know, that's Marisol, that's my dog. Yes, Marisol, yes.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I wanted to tell the court about my friend Michelle Troconis, how we met, and my personal experience with her. I've been volunteering at U.S. Horse Welfare and Rescue in Avon, Connecticut since February of 2019. After 30 years in the corporate world, I had been laid off in October. Prior to losing my job, I had lost my dad, and I was feeling very lost, depressed, and uncertain about what I wanted to do. I decided to take a break from the corporate world and responded to an ad on Facebook looking for volunteers. Soon I realized how special and comforting being around the horses could be and how much I was healing by being around them. I was spending more and more time at the rescue and often met and trained new volunteers. One evening, Susan Mitchell, president of the rescue, called me to talk about an application that she had received through Volunteer Match. Susan asked me if I knew who Michelle Troconis was, and I told her that yes, I did know of her. I had been watching many of the news broadcasts on the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos, so I was familiar with who Michelle was, or so I thought. Susan was concerned about having Michelle volunteer because of any possible negative impact it might have to the rescue, both with our volunteers and our fundraising efforts. At that time, we were in the planning stages of many of the programs that are offered at the rescue today. And as we talked, we both agreed that if we were going to have programs that offer a safe space for people and women in troubled situations, we should welcome this woman who was obviously struggling. Susan asked me if I would mind meeting Michelle at the rescue and giving her an introduction to the work that we do. Michelle arrived with her father, Dr. Carlos Troconis, and they were both obviously very nervous about how she may be received. I am a true believer in our constitutional right of innocence until proven guilty, so I had decided to put any personal thoughts or judgments aside and welcome her with kindness. From the moment Michelle spoke, I was shocked at how soft-spoken and sweet she was. I did not realize from the media coverage that she spoke with such broken English, and often she would be embarrassed when she asked me to explain what a certain expression meant. In all honesty, I expected to meet a cold, hard woman, and Michelle is the exact opposite. Over the next weeks and months, I worked with Michelle often, and we became fast friends. She offered to teach me more about horsemanship, and I had my daughter take riding lessons with her. I never once had any hesitation about letting my child spend time with Michelle.
I realize, what did you get into? Oh boy. I realize that a lot of people, are obviously very angry and things, but I think hearing these people speak on behalf of the sentence before they are sentenced, I think something interesting that was said before by the person who spoke before this woman was talking about Fotis Dulos manipulating and it is something to consider. doesn't excuse Michelle Troconis' behavior, and obviously she has been convicted by a jury of her peers. But it is interesting. I think it's always, as a son of both a perpetrator and the victim, I think it's important to hear these sides because we often forget about this a lot. We forget about the person who Jennifer Farber Dulos was, but also the person who Michelle Troconis is. And we also, we don't have Fotis Dulos to be held accountable for his actions because he, as the true coward he was, took the easy way out. So I'll let this get back to that. That's my sort of commentary here.
Her daughter, Nicole, and mine are very close in age. So we often spoke about being single moms, raising at that time almost teens. My daughter, Emily, loved taking lessons with Michelle, and they formed a friendship bond as well. She even gave Emily a bunch of clothes that she had gotten for Nicole, but didn't fit. I think it helped Michelle a bit to spend time with Emily, since most of the time she could only see Nicole virtually. Nicole is absolutely the most important thing in Michelle's life, and she was always so proud to tell me about her accomplishments and how distressing it was to not be able to be with her. Susan brought Michelle, her mom, Maricela, and I together often to discuss the best approach to launch therapy-type programs at the rescue. I got to know Maricela and Carlos, and I understand why Michelle and her sisters are such kind, loving, and faithful people. Maricela and Carlos are no longer together, but you'd never know that from looking at them. They have stood together by Michelle's side from the beginning as one family. Since the trial, I have also gotten to know her sister, Claudia, and it is amazing at the bond they all share. The shock and distress that they felt at the verdict just broke my heart. They have given everything they have, emotionally, physically, and financially, to support Michelle, and they continue to do so. As our friendship grew, I was getting more and more frustrated with the media coverage and the picture that they were painting of Michelle. She is one of the warmest, kindest, and truly exceptional women that I have the pleasure of knowing, yet the media has made her into one of the most hated women in the country. When I learned that my younger sister was dying of cancer and very quickly passed away, Michelle was always there with a kind word or a hug to support me. Her bond with her sisters gave her the true understanding of what this loss meant to me, and I am very grateful for her compassion and support. When Michelle moved back to Florida, we continue to keep in touch, and I, in all honesty, feel very blessed to have her as my friend. I don't know what the future holds for Michelle. I pray that any appeal will eventually result in her freedom. At this time, however, the only thing I can do is be here, speak my truth, and ask for your mercy as you hand down her sentence. I hope that my words help you to understand a bit more about who Michelle Troconis really is, and not the monster that the media has made the world think she is. Michelle Troconis is a daughter, sister, friend, teacher, and most of all, she is a mother. Michelle has done a lot of good things in this world, both personally and professionally. She is not a person that will cause this world any harm or a danger to anyone. Thank you very much for letting me speak today, and my heartfelt condolences go out to Jennifer's children, family, mother, and friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Paula Salazar to speak, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Judge Randolph. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak here today. I am Paula, one of Michi's closest friends. For me, she's my best friend. I have had the privilege of knowing her for over 20 years. We met in Argentina, both navigating life in a new country, and our connection was instant. In a place where everything was unfamiliar and myself being shy and introverted, Michelle's friendship provided me with a sense of belonging and security that I will be forever grateful for. Michelle possesses a special spark that brings joy and good energy wherever she goes. I have always admired her authenticity and her remarkable ability to uplift those around her. When I met her, something that really struck me was her acceptance of others. She's the kind of person that never judges, criticizes, or speaks ill of anyone, a very scarce trait in today's world. Throughout our friendship, I've had the privilege of witnessing Michelle's unwavering dedication and love as a mother to Nicole. Their bond is truly inspiring. And in all these years, I've also had the opportunity to know and share moments with her family, and I've witnessed their warmth and closeness firsthand. In addition to her role as a devoted mother, beautiful family member, and an unconditional friend, Michelle has dedicated countless hours to volunteering. Every time I visit her in Connecticut, she took me along to assist at a church where we cooked meals and provided aid to the less fortunate. In Argentina, she made a profound impact on many individuals through her dedication to equine therapy. She has always demonstrated compassion, selflessness, and deep empathy for others. Michelle's fate took an unexpected turn when she crossed paths with Fotis Dulos. He appeared to be the perfect man. I personally engaged with him on numerous occasions, even introducing him to my children and my mother.
I'm gonna jump in here. You know, this is the thing that I think affects me the most with this is that Fotis Dulos reminds me a lot of my father, who was very charming on the outside and had this whole facade, but deep down inside was a very troubled individual who obviously has psychopathic tendencies. I'm not going to diagnosing anyone. And look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not in law enforcement. I'm just a guy who's been through a lot of shit. If you see the trailer, but the thing is that he possesses qualities that are very similar to my father from everything that I've seen and read and watched about this trial, and his cowardly way of getting out of this was because he didn't want to face justice. And unfortunately, like, now we're in this situation. It doesn't bring anyone back, but also, you know, here you have someone. So when they talk about how she unfortunately crossed paths with him, I completely agree. It's absolutely horrific. Very dangerous individual who took the easy way out instead of facing justice for his crime.
And yet we never detected any red flags. Unfortunately,
Which you often do.
That he was
You often don't detect these red flags until it's too late, and then you try to, you know, and you're sucked in, and that's the shame.
mostly a coward who left his children without parents and the woman he supposedly loved in this situation. This experience highlights and the woman he supposedly detected
Here she says
any red flags.
the coward part.
Unfortunately, he showed that he was mostly a coward who left his children without parents and the woman he supposedly loved in this situation. This experience highlights the scary reality that anyone could find themselves in the place Michi is now. Your Honor, while I understand the gravity of the charges against Michi, I implore you to consider her positive qualities and contributions to society and respectfully request a compassionate outcome for her. And as I stand here advocating for my beautiful friend, I do want to express that my heart also aches for Jennifer's children and family. It's heartbreaking to know and think about the amount of pain they've had to bear. Thank you very much.
Attorney Schoenhorn, the defense has about 15 minutes left.
I agree, absolutely. She has been found guilty by a jury of her peers.
I would
Absolutely.
now call on Michelle's sister, Claudia Troconis.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Claudia Troconis, and I am here today as the youngest sister of Michelle Troconis. I am grateful for the opportunity to speak about my sister, whom I deeply admire and support. Michelle has always been an example of kindness and compassion in our family and communities. She would never intentionally harm anyone or be part of any malicious plan as horrific as what she has been accused of. My sister is a loving and exceptional human being who unfortunately fell in love with the wrong man, Fotis Dulos. He
True, Carol
portrayed
Ross.
himself convincingly as a charming, well-educated, hardworking man and a dedicated father to his children, who seemed to embody great virtues. Yet he deceived us all, but most importantly, my sister Michelle. One of the most frustrating things for Michi is that while people accept that Fotis fooled everyone, including lawyers and mental health professionals, my sister is expected to have seen him for what he truly was, a dangerous, manipulative, and controlling man. The fact that professionals missed it provides clear and convincing support for the argument that Michelle had no idea what Fotis was and what he was capable of. But I am here today to explain why Michelle would not have known anything and to speak of who she is. As the eldest of 4 sisters and over 21 cousins, Michi has always been the pillar of our family. After leaving our home country, Venezuela, she coordinated our gatherings, ensuring we stayed connected despite our geographical distances, reinforcing the close-knit bonds we value and maintain today. Michi has always been more than just my eldest sister. She has been like a second mother to me. We're 12 years apart, and her nurturing presence has been influential throughout my life. After our parents' amicable divorce, Michi took on significant responsibilities to support our family. One stark memory that stands out is when I was 6 years old and sustained an eye injury while playing soccer with neighbors. I was home alone with her and in a lot of pain, and Michi, without hesitation, rushed me to the nearest hospital, where I underwent critical surgery that saved my vision. Her care has been nothing short of heroic for me as a child. Michelle's also an exceptional and dedicated mother. She has been a committed mother to her only daughter, my niece, who's an Olympic athlete who has achieved the highest levels of medals while representing the United States of America. When I decided to have children, I aspired to be a wonderful and dedicated mother like Michi to my twin boys. She has supported every significant milestone for my twins and nephews, serving as an exceptional aunt. They too look up to their eldest aunt, cherishing every outing filled with joy and memorable experiences. Michi's passion for helping others extended into her professional life and is what inspired me the most professionally and personally. Motivated by her paternal aunt, born with an intellectual disability, she pursued a bachelor's degree in special education in Venezuela. Her dedication didn't stop with her degree. My father instilled in us a love for animals and sports from an early age, and Michi took it upon herself to do courses in equine therapy for adults and children with special needs. She pioneered the first therapeutic riding center in Venezuela back in the 90s. However, this wasn't just a job for Michi, it was her calling. She poured her heart into each session and each family she worked with, fundamentally changing lives for the better. She became the therapist and continues to be the main influence of my best friend's brother because he was diagnosed at an early age with an intellectual disability, and he says that Michi forever changed his life. One beautiful memory I forever cherish is when Michi took us both with her to a staying equestrian camp in New York, and that's when my intense admiration for her grew deeper, as I was just 12 years old then. I always accompanied my sister to her sessions as we shared the same passion for riding horses and helping those most vulnerable. Her profound impact on those she worked with, including my best friend's brother, is a testament to her character and dedication to our community. Thanks to her guidance and inspiration, I followed in her footsteps, volunteering throughout my high school years in a program called Horses for Handicapped. Her influence inspired me to pursue a career in behavior analysis, and I am a proud board-certified behavior analyst. She instilled in me the sense of making a difference in the lives of many children with special needs. None of this would have been possible without Michi's example and mentorship. What happened to Jennifer Dulos is heartbreaking. We're deeply aware of the pain and suffering endured by her family and 5 children these past 5 years. This has left a permanent scar, and our hearts go out to her loved ones during this incredibly difficult time, as no one should endure such suffering. Today, I stand before you, Judge, to affirm my unwavering support for my sister Michi and to reveal her true character, which is very different from the accusations against her. Her life has been one of service, love, and dedication to the well-being of others. It is these attributes and her history of positive impact that I humbly ask you to consider in your decision for her sentencing today. Thank you, Your Honor, for giving me this opportunity to speak on my sister's behalf and for considering the full scope of her true character in your decision today.
Thank you.
I call on Michelle's daughter, Nicole, to speak. She was 12 years old in 2019. She's still a child.
Your Honor, I stand here today to speak about my mom, who means the world to me. I have been in my mom's life for 17 years, 5 months, and 12 days. Despite my parents' separation when I was young, today I recognize the healthy relationship, mutual respect, and care they still hold. They've exemplified the essence of co-parenting, always prioritizing my well-being above all else. My mother, Michelle, has embraced my passions as her own, particularly my love for skiing. Despite not being raised in the skiing world, she has devoted herself to understanding and supporting my aspiration in the sport. That includes moving with me to Colorado since 2015 for 3 to 5 months each season. My mom's presence at my races all over the US, regardless of her commitments, speaks for itself about her dedication as a parent. I remember asking my mom why she only had me, and her answer was, because I wanted to always offer all the attention to you. Michelle isn't just my mother. She's my best friend, my rock, and my guiding light. If you ask me who I want to be, my unhesitant answer would be, I want to be just like my mom. She is a perfect example of kindness, thoughtfulness, and selflessness. Whether it's cooking together, numerous friends of mine seek out her company, drawn to her warmth and kindness. Whether it's cooking together, sharing conversations, or simply being in her presence, people gravitate to her brought-up spirit. Reflecting on my past, I remember the introduction of Fotis Dulos into our lives, meeting him at the water ski club in Miami. I noticed he was outgoing and friendly. I also met the kids, and I myself enjoyed spending time with them. Watching my mother fall in love with him, I welcomed the possibility of her finding happiness. When my mom decided to move to Connecticut, the first thing she let me know was about Sundown Ski Resort, a mountain only a few minutes away from Fort Jefferson Crossing. Even though she had fallen in love, she always carried the thought of me and how much I needed my skiing. So much that my mom and I would move to Colorado 4 to 5 months every year for my training. Despite spending considerable time with Fotis Dulos and even forming individual plans together, I never anticipated the tragedy that unfolded, leaving me shocked and confused. I never had the chance to meet Jennifer, nor did my mother ever speak ill of her. My heart goes out to the kids, and I earnestly hope that one day we all discover peace within our hearts. Through it all, I want to emphasize my love and trust in my mom. She has been my anchor, guiding me through life's troubles. She's the first person I call after a bad competition, and without her motivational words or simply her peaceful voice, I wouldn't be able to be where I am today in either my sport or in life. I am begging you to listen. I need my mom in my life. Not just as a parent, but as a source of strength and understanding. My love for her remains uninfluenced by the situations or difficulties we may encounter. Thank you for letting me share this with you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Understand.
So, yeah, that's really tough to hear. Not gonna lie. I didn't realize. I thought her daughter was in her 20s, but apparently she's not. She's still a minor. You know, this is one of the things that I talk about a lot. You know, is again, as someone who's been in a very similar circumstance, even though I felt the same way about my mother that she sounds like she felt with, so she feels about her mother. I did not feel that way about my father, but it's still a very difficult situation because you have to, the nuance with which you have to, you sort of understand this as, you know, she's going to go to prison. She's been convicted of this heinous crime. The person that she was involved with isn't there to stand to take the fall as well. And now this young lady's life is impacted forever because of the bad decisions of not only her mother, but the actions of Fotis Dulos. And it's very hard for people to really understand when you're the child of a perpetrator, no matter who that is, whether that's for me, for this young lady, her is Jennifer Dulos, her mother is the perpetrator and Jennifer Dulos is the victim. In my case, I'm the son of both. You live with that for the rest of your life. That never washes off you, especially nowadays because everything is so public. And yes, we haven't seen her thank God we haven't seen her, but I'm sure people know who she is. This is a small community. And these are the things that, you know, when you judge these things, you know, it's not the child's fault, but some people tend to try to say things like, well, can the apple fall far from the tree? It is, as you say, Journey, it's very complex. So it's just something to keep in mind. I just say this as someone who grew up with living with a stigma like this. It can be very challenging and difficult to live with this and the consequences of the actions of another individual, and then another individual on top of that being Fotis Dulos. So it's just there are so many lives that are ruined on both sides of the perspective. There's Jennifer Farber Dulos' family. There's her children, the 4 children that she had with photos, or 5 children. They had a lot of children. Now this young woman, the daughter of Michelle Troconis. I mean, everyone's lives are always impacted by violence and by crimes like this, and we seem to forget. We get laser focused on one side or the other. It's like this every time. It is so much to the story, and nowadays with the proliferation of the internet and social media, it becomes even grander. So just something to think about. That's my 2 cents. Let's get back to it.
And there's only limited time. I want to point out a couple of things that haven't been made clear. The first is that during the trial, the court did not have any aspect or understanding what kind of person Michelle was, whether it was from media or just what people were saying about her during the trial. The court received a completely different caricature, if I will say, as to who she really is. She's a loving daughter, sister, and mother and friend. She's a religious and charitable person. She was kind, she's helpful, not only to other people, but to animals, to the disabled. I know, for example, as the report indicates, that the Pane program at the university she went to, which stands for Association of Parents and Friends of Exceptional Children, the degree she got, exceptional children in Spanish means special needs children. This is what she did. Her equine therapy, whether she actually went to Dubai at one point to work with disabled children there. She worked at the horse rescue in Avon while she was here. She's had no criminal history. She has no history of violence whatsoever. She even bought a condominium in Colorado so her daughter could train and be there with her during the winter months so she could compete as a competitive international skier on the Youth Olympic ski team representing the United States in Korea, where Michelle was not allowed to go because of the restrictions of this trial. I'll just note at one point that Fotis Dulos became angry that Michelle bought the condo in Colorado rather than using her money to invest in his company. That's what kind of person he was like. She may have been naive, that she believed in Fotis, she believed who he was, and she believed the police when they were talking to her. And also, I will note, she believed her former ineffective counsel. The probation officer, as the court indicated, stated that it's not fully clear what role Michelle played. And I submit that that's still true to this day after the court heard 2 months of evidence during the trial. There's a concept in the law of minor versus minimal role versus the role of others. The court cannot sentence Michelle for what Fotis Dulos or others did. We talk about relative culpability. It is Michelle the court has to consider, not what Fotis Dulos did. And none of the things that he did are attributable to Michelle. And I will go further, Your Honor, that although the court doesn't agree with my arguments that she had very little knowledge, if anything, about what Fotis was up to, I will note that whatever the court feels was her complicity, it made no difference to what Fotis Dulos did or what was uncovered as to what Fotis Dulos did. It did not help complete something that wouldn't already have occurred, but for things that she herself told the police. They would not even have known about that. So she is the one who implicated herself according to what the state said. I note she is not a danger to anyone in the community. She was, while on release, she received a form of punishment because she was on house arrest for 9 full months. She could not leave for any reason other than going to counsel's office. I found that I was one of the sole bases for her to be able to leave her small apartment that she had to stay in because she was ordered out of the large home that she had been staying at in Farmington with Fotis. In addition, she was on a bracelet for 1,404 days until Judge White removed that condition in 2023. And I would submit that such long bracelet, having to charge 1 to 2 hours every day also constitute, reminding her every single day for years, also constitutes a form of punishment, even if it doesn't involve incarceration. When I talk about comparative responsibility, the court is not here, cannot punish Fotis Dulos. He's not here. I understand people's anger in their inability to punish Fotis Dulos for what he did. But Michelle is not a substitute for what the court, if the court was in a position to sentence Fotis Dulos, to do to her what the court would have done to Fotis. And finally, I note, Your Honor, that we're talking about comparative responsibility. Pavel Gumieni was clearly, based on his own testimony, had knowledge of what was going on. He was told by his own admission, Fotis Dulos, there may be DNA on my car seats. Remove those car seats. Did he refuse? No. His excuse was, well, I didn't want to lose my job. But he removed those car seats. He deceived the police until they came and took his truck and then came to his house to take the white Jeep that was parked in his driveway. Only then did he mention, oh, by the way, I still have those seats here. But he was given full immunity. Because he was given full immunity, he suffers no consequences at all, and he was rewarded with U.S. citizenship afterwards. Whoever was down moving that vehicle in the afternoon of May 24th, we don't know who that is. But again, someone who was directly responsible down in New Canaan. So if we're talking about comparative responsibility, and I note that Pavel Gumieni got a free pass, my request is going to be for probation for Michelle, because she's already suffered the vilification of not just people here, but in the entire country, if not overseas as well. Now, it's my understanding, that's all I have to say. I know that Michelle has some words that she wants to speak to you on.
Thank you.
Will the court hear from her?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Your Honor, I am deeply saddened by this tragedy that has affected so many lives. I found out things before and during trial about a man, Fotis Dulos. I thought I knew and loved. I deeply regret ever being in a relationship with Fotis Dulos and bringing my daughter, my family, and myself into our lives, into his life. I am a person of profound faith, and I have been praying and will continue to pray for those who suffered and still suffer. I am thankful to my whole family and my dear friends who have stood by me and support me. I am grateful to you, Your Honor, to let me express myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentation.
Thank you. What the court is going to do is take a recess and consider the remarks. The court has read the pre-sentence investigation report. The court has also read the 63 or so letters submitted to this court in support of Michelle Troconis. We're going to resume at 3:20. Stand in recess.
All rise. Senator Superior Court's now recess.
All right, so the court will go on recess, and yeah, in fact, I think I can fast forward because we are a little bit behind the stream. So let's see what we have here. So we are about 12 minutes behind. So I'll pause this for a little bit and we'll catch up. So yeah, some really, I mean, look, I say this a lot. This is the consequences, is the impact of violence. This is the very this is the nuance in true crime that I try to provide to you guys, which is this perspective from someone who, again, I am the son of a murderer. I'm also the son of the victim, who I loved very, very much and was the biggest part of my life. So when I hear this, you know, and I see Michelle Troconis, obviously, I see her as both in this situation, as a perpetrator and as a victim, because I feel that, in my opinion, you know, she has been sentenced by a jury of her peers. They have found her guilty, and she's obviously going to do time. But the thing is that the person who committed the crimes took the easy way out. And for all intents and purposes, this is someone who manipulated her in a lot of ways. That does not disregard or doesn't say that she isn't guilty of anything, because she is. It's been proven in the court of law. But also, you know, and she chose the actions that she took. She chose, as people have mentioned, you know, she opened the car door. She could have gone to police. She could have been more cooperative. She could have said X, Y, and Z. She could have been more forthcoming. She could have not stood by and allowed the suffering to happen while the divorce was going on. There's a lot of actions that she should have taken and that she could have taken to not put herself here. And this is why this to me feels like such a cautionary tale, right? This feels like such a cautionary tale because, you know, I feel like even in a way, you know, sorry, I'm reading your comments. She had a very nasty attitude during her trial. Now she's just feeling. I never saw her attitude during the trial. I watched quite a bit of it. She never took the witness stand, as far as I remember. So I don't know what nasty attitude she might have had. She was in custody the whole time too, I believe, wasn't she? Or maybe she wasn't. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was. She was taken into custody. That's right. She was out on bond for a while. The point is that, you know, it's very difficult to be in these circumstances. It's very difficult. You know, there's a lot of nuance that is involved in these cases, and there's a lot of nuance that goes through, you know, because if you are the family of the victims, this doesn't bring your victims back. There's no sentence in the world that's going to bring people back into your life or make the trauma or everything that you went through any less arduous. And there is nothing that is going to bring those children's mother back. Jennifer Farber Dulos is gone. And these children are not going to, they're not going to get their mother back. And then they're going to grow up later and learn about all of this, because these are very young children. I mean, I'm sure they know something, but it doesn't bring anyone back. And by choosing to, and on the flip side, Michelle Troconis, by choosing to aid Fotis Dulos instead of coming to the police, whether or not she was manipulated by him, whether or not he lied to her, etc., you know, she still made choices. She still had choices in the situation. And I think if she had made better choices, they would have led to a different outcome. The biggest shame is, again, Fotis Dulos chose to take the easy way out instead of standing and facing the crime, you know, instead of facing trial for the crime that he committed. So that is a very difficult thing to sort of reconcile here. They should be back. Let's see.
More than 20 years.
I want to back this up just a little bit. Okay.
Court has heard the remarks of counsel, remarks from family members, the remarks from what the court would consider victims of the crime. Almost always, there is no single appropriate sentence. Otherwise, the legislature would have designated a single appropriate sentence for every offense. The charges here are conspiracy to commit murder, which is a Class B felony. The legislature has set the sentencing range, not less than 1 year, nor more than 20 years. Which means the legislature contemplated, in some instances, sentences of no more than a year, and in the same instance, sentences of 20 years. The legislature has given the judiciary a range. Conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence is a Class D felony, maximum 5 years. Tampering with physical evidence, a Class D felony, maximum 5 years. Hindering prosecution is a Class C felony, not less than 1 year nor more than 10 years. The court relies on what the law states and what the law allows to be proper considerations in setting a sentence. The court relies on the nature and circumstances of the offense, the history and background and character of the offender. After such consideration, the court turns to what are called the traditional purposes of sentencing: specific deterrence, general deterrence, punishment, incapacitation, rehabilitation, vocational or educational training, and medical treatment. Those factors are not all given equal weight depending on the nature and circumstances of the offense and the history, background, and character of the offender. The court does not take sides. If the court knew possibly any one of you and had a bond with any one of you, this court would not have tried that case. It's not the court's role to side or favor one side or another. Sentencing, in many ways, is a dispassionate exercise. The court has no bond with any individual who spoke today or any other individual involved in the case. The court cannot develop the passions that one side or the other has. In State versus Huey, that's 199 Connecticut 121 at 126, a 1986 case, the Connecticut Supreme Court held that the sentencing court may consider information that would be inadmissible at trial for the purpose of sentencing. That same court held that evidence of crimes for which the defendant was indicted but neither tried nor convicted may be considered. Well, the word indicted and the process of indictment is not generally employed in Connecticut. Essentially, that means where there has been a finding of probable cause, but there has been no trial or no conviction. Additionally, as a matter of due process, the court may consider information that has a minimum indicia of reliability. Now, that minimum indicia of reliability is not limited to unfavorable information. The court can consider favorable information that has a minimum indicia of reliability. The court certainly considers the victim impact statements. Every victim has the right to be heard before the court sentences a defendant. That's part of the Connecticut Victims' Bill of Rights, which is read every day in every courthouse here in Connecticut. The court would clarify what it perceives as perhaps a misconception of what the court's role is. The court does not deliberate with the jury. The court does not deliberate on the evidence at all. The court hears the evidence as the evidence comes into the record. So when you hear that the court has a view of the evidence, the court has no view of the evidence. What the court has is a verdict and what could have been the reasonable and logical inferences from the evidence that was adduced. The court would not know what the jury discussed over those many hours. What the court can find is this. It was clear during the jury charge, jury instructions, that the court instructed the jury that it may draw any reasonable and logical inferences from the facts found to have been proven. Based on the verdict, the jury could have found the following reasonable and logical inferences. Fotis Dulos was not home at 4 Jefferson Crossing the morning of May 24th when his wife was murdered, but the defendant said he was home. When the defendant admitted that he was not home, the defendant, who had been angry about Dulos's talking to other women, did not even ask him where he had been. The defendant, who was angry that he had visited his wife, did not ask him if he had visited her. In fact, the defendant, as the court remembers, the evidence didn't ask him anything. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant knew where he was and knew what he was doing. The defendant said she saw Kent Mawhinney and Fotis Dulos together in the office at 4 Jefferson Crossing on the morning of May 24th, but the defendant did not see Fotis Dulos and Kent Mawhinney in the office at 4 Jefferson Crossing on the morning of May 24th. There was a phone call made to Dulos's phone, which Dulos left intentionally at 4 Jefferson Crossing. The defendant answered it, and the jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference from all of the evidence that the defendant answered the phone to make it appear that Dulos took the call himself on the morning of May 24th at Fort Jefferson Crossing, when he was really on his way to or in New Canaan. When a police officer came to Fort Jefferson Crossing soon after the murder, the defendant did not even go to the door, even though her daughter, who was not home, may have been the subject of that conversation at the door. Now, it has been clear that the defendant cares deeply for her daughter. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant did not go to the door because the defendant knew the reason the officer was there, to find out more about the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos. These are reasonable and logical inferences from the facts that were adduced in the case during the trial. The defendant traveled through a part of Hartford with Dulos as he dumps the bloody clothing of his wife. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that on the same day, the defendant helped him pretend he was home in the morning, but in the evening accompanied him to get rid of the evidence. The defendant's DNA profile was found on one of the bags disposed of in Hartford. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant helped dispose of the evidence knowingly. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant helped Fotis Dulos clean up traces of evidence at 80 Mountain Spring Road because the defendant and Dulos were there together cleaning on the same day that Tacoma traveled to New Canaan. This is a flurry of irregular activity all on the same day. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the activities of that day were so irregular that the defendant could not possibly forget them in the span of 2 weeks. Even if the jurors individually had doubts about the defendant's guilt, each one of them ultimately concluded that their doubts were not reasonable. This is not a view of the court's view of the evidence. These are logical and reasonable inferences that the jury could have drawn. The court is going to talk a little about the philosophy of sentencing. Sentencing is not the product of the court's passions or prejudices. The court doesn't have a bond with anyone involved in the case. It's a dispassionate exercise. The court did not investigate the case. The court did not talk to the victims. The court has no conversation with the defendant or the defendant's family. So there are some questions that are age-old. Does the court, the sentencing court, adopt the public opprobrium, the indignation of the community? When does retribution turn into revenge? What's the role of empathy? should the court exercise sympathy for one side or another? These are age-old questions. The court relies on what the law says. The court can consider the nature and circumstances of the offense, the history, background, and character of the offender. Every exercise is not an either-or exercise. Often, the good and the bad are true. What is the purpose of the court taking into consideration the victim impact statements? Is that only for the purpose of sympathy? The court uses the victim impact statements to assign, in its view, the proper weight to any one of those traditional purposes of sentencing. Sentencing is not arbitrary or capricious. It's not a matter of how the judge feels that day. The court wants to also address what has become, over the course of perhaps centuries, perhaps not, a cliche. Michelle Troconis' life is in your hands. Michelle Troconis' life is in her own hands. What Michelle Troconis decides to do today, tomorrow, and the next day is up to her. From what the court has heard, she has a great deal to offer. The court has no control over what her decisions will be. Her life is hers.
On that, if y'all are following that as well, I'm sure you are. Yeah. Anyways, let me know in the comments below. Yeah, the prosecution wanted 45 to 50 years. You know, the guy's like, that's 14 and a half years though. That she could be eligible to be out. I don't know what the sentencing is like. I don't know what kind of credit she gets. All these things will be sorted out later. Just so you guys know, I have spent a lot of time in prison myself, not as obviously a guest of the state, but dealing with my father who is incarcerated for the murder of my mother. And I'll tell you, it is not a fun place. It's not like she's going to camp. You know, she's going to quite possibly one of the worst places on earth. And even prison in the United States is god awful. It is a terrible, terrible, terrible place. And even with the sentence that's, you know, some of you might feel it's light, but it is, it does turn everything up. It does turn your entire life upside down. And, you know, she's going to, you know, she's got to make it through prison first. It's not a fun place. She's not going to like day camp. It's not like, you know, you're locked away. And it's terrible. It's terrible, terrible, terrible place to be. No doubt about it. Haven't seen the Karen Swift trial. Don't even know anything about that. Again, she was not on trial for murder. She was on trial for conspiracy to commit murder. Fotis would have gotten life, I would imagine. Yes, without parole. But Fotis Dulos is not here to face the music, obviously. That is the Daybell trial. But what do you guys think? Oh, now we're sorry, YouTube clicked me onto another video. No, we're not going to discuss the Trump trial. We are not going to discuss that. Look, this is really sad. And again, there's never any winners in this thing. That's the thing I think that a lot of people do not understand about crime and these types of cases and what what happens. You don't understand is that there's no winners here. It's like, so she's going to go away. Jennifer Farber Dulos is dead. The children don't have their mother. A family doesn't have a loved one, sister, daughter, friend of the family. None of that. All of that. And Crystal Pontiac, it has been a wild ride this year. This week, this last 48 hours. What's going on? As I always like to say, they're doing Daybell right now, and it's just kind of sitting there. Oh, look, there's my react. I've got myself on the other screen too, watching. So the thing is that this isn't going to bring Jennifer Farber Dulos back. It's not going to bring this. Never brings, like, everybody wants to talk about closure and how all this works. And we're going to get justice. We've gotten justice now. She's going to go away. It doesn't work that way, guys. It doesn't bring the closure that I think a lot of people think that it's supposed to bring. It doesn't happen like that. What happens is you have to you are okay, so this is still going on. Yeah, the Daybell thing is still happening. Now they're debating it. This doesn't bring closure because now all these children are going to grow up without a mother and a father. They're being watched by their grandmother who is very old, and they're going to have lives, and whatever that looks like. This trial has been so public and so extreme that they're going to live with that stigma. And then, a father who murdered their mother. And then, you're going to, you've got Michelle Troconis' daughter, who I believe she's in her mid-teens. So let's say they said it was 12 when all this happened. So that would, maybe she's like 17 now. Yeah. So she'd be like 17. She's still a minor. That's why they didn't show her in court. You've got that scenario, where, she's 17, so she'll be 32-ish, 31 when her mother gets out. Some people are saying she'll get out in 7.5 years. Who knows? Good behavior. A lot of things. Again, you're in prison. A lot of things happen. If you're in prison and you get into an altercation, somebody could take her life. She could get into an altercation. She could be sentenced to give him more time. She could be put in solitary on, medical watch because they're concerned about her. There's a lot of things that happen in prison. You know what I mean? It's not a smooth sailing and she gets in and out. A lot of people, they'll go into prison. They put their head down. They do their time. That's it. Some people find purpose in prison. Some people find religion in prison. Some people find a hope of a better life in prison, that then when they get out, they'll do great things with their lives. They'll prepare for that. I know several people, I've interviewed people like that, who are going to come out, determined to come out better than when they went in. But still, it's not like healthcare is great. It's not like healthcare is great anywhere, but it's not like healthcare is great in prison. It's not like the food is good. You're eating nutritious food. No, none of that. And essentially, a young woman is going to grow up without her mother. Young children are growing up without a mother and a father. On the other side, the victim's family, nobody wins. So I know this. A lot of people want to see justice, and that's great. But so many lives are impacted by all of this. I can't say that enough, guys. So you just think about that. I think she must do the 14 and a half years. That's my understanding of what was read. I don't think there is half, it's not California. If she was in California, maybe it'd be different, because we have very interesting sentencing things here. And we're so overcrowded in our prisons that they let people out for whatever reason. Which doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes. Mover Nation, we get through another one. Thank you for joining me here. And this is the sentencing of Michelle Troconis. Sorry, it's a little wonky in the beginning, but I appreciate all of you being here. We're going to have a new month starting for all our channel members, Patreon supporters, Patreon supporters and channel members. If you help to support this channel financially, we are having our AV club. We are moving our times for our AV clubs to Tuesdays in the middle of the month. AV Club, Collier's AV Club, if you are not familiar with it, we do a we watch a documentary or TV show based around true crime ish content. A couple months ago we watched my film A Murder in Mansfield. Then we watched The Tinder Swindler. Then we watched on this last time we watched The Jinx, second season of The Jinx, part 2. Sorry, I'm trying to call it up here. We watched the second season of The Jinx, part 2, episode 1. And we'd offer. So we are going to have another AV club that will be in the middle of June. We'll do it. It'll be on a Tuesday. And then if you are a member, we also do monthly live meet and greets on the last Sunday of every month at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We do those lives as well. So trying to get everybody to come join and make it for everyone around the world. There's a lot of members around the world. So thank you all so much. That is the housekeeping for the moment here. Looking over here at the Daybell thing, lots of hearts. I don't know what's happening. Anyways, Mover Nation, we get through another one. Thank you so much for coming here and joining us for the sentencing of Michelle Troconis. New video coming out tonight about Karen Reed. I interview lawyer Mark Devereaux about the case. It's a fantastic interview. It's very interesting. I'm learning so much about this whole thing. It's wild. But Mover Nation, here's the outro. We'll see you. Mover Nation, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to all my channel members and Patreon supporters. And for more exclusive content, behind the scenes videos, monthly VIP meet and greets, and watch parties, please consider supporting me on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube channel member. If you like this video, check out this one right here or this one right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps with the algorithm. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. I'll see you on the next one. Good girl, Marisol. Good girl.